Well, Matt Eberflus has told us that he is in charge. These decisions are his to make, and he is going to make them, but he's not going to tell us what he's doing. Why is he the most powerful person in the organization speaking today?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I hear that clip that you played coming in where Matt says if you take a person's legs away, they can't run. I feel like my legs have been taken away, and I can't run away from this entire disaster because I just feel like we're captive to this complete train wreck that has no obvious decisions, I guess. The solutions are obvious, but the decisions aren't. And Matt came across today as wishy-washy, as indecisive, as timid to lead through crisis. I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow, later tonight, Wednesday morning, that Shane Waldron has been relieved of play calling duties. We won't know probably for another 24 hours whether he even still has a key card at Haugh. Just make a decision, push your football team in the right direction. And Matt obviously has oversight of the coaching staff, but you would hope that Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren have some fingerprints on which way this thing goes, because there's a lot at stake here. And I think we're all coming face to face with the harsh reality that the Bears are really, really close to the edge of the cliff again.
Yeah, and I was surprised that let me back up. I was not surprised that he didn't want to say what the changes were, because I think he honestly doesn't know. But I would have thought that they had a plan in place that if things go south yet again, a.k.a. yesterday at home against a bad Patriots team, that they had a fail-safe of some kind, which Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles, since I hear they are in constant communication, had figured out what they were going to do if they moved on from Shane Waldron as a play caller. But I think that's why they didn't announce anything today, because they don't know who's going to be calling plays. And that is concerning given what got us to this point, right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, it's ultra concerning, and you had time. I mean, I get it. You don't want to make knee-jerk, hasty decisions, but you knew at 3:15 yesterday the discussions that needed to be had and the sleep that was going to be lost trying to come to some decisions that create a sense of stability inside your building first and foremost. We heard from T.J. Edwards and DeAndre Swift today at the lectern inside the PNC Center. And you talk about a couple of football players that are representative of the entire locker room in sort of the dejection and the frustration and the sense that this thing is going in the wrong direction rapidly. And when the people above you don't provide obvious answers on how it's going to get turned around, it kills morale. I mean, it absolutely kills morale. And I think you guys watched that for 3 hours yesterday afternoon on the football field with that performance, with what was at stake, with what had happened the previous 2 weeks, with the opponent that came to your home stadium to lay that steaming turd on Soldier Field and lose to that football team 19-3 and not even compete. It is absolutely problematic. And then they stand up here telling you that they need to take 48, 72, 96 hours to try to come to some resolution to get it fixed. I don't know. That's why I say I feel like my legs have been chopped off and I'm stuck here to watch it all unfold.
They got the Packers this week. They don't have time to be messing around. They need to get ready for the next game.
Well, but he
Marshall,
keeps saying,
it's the same thing as happened with Tyreek Stevenson 2 weeks ago. Like,
yes,
just come to a decision, make the decision, announce it, move on.
Dan, the whole point was, I was like, hey, if they haven't learned anything from 2 weeks ago with Tyreek Stevenson, they know the questions that are going to be asked on Monday. They know what the questions are. They better have answers. Guess what? They didn't have answers.
Nope.
I don't get it. I don't know why he is allowed to keep talking about his sacred processes as if the idea of communication and processing is in itself the same as coaching the team to play football better. Like, these things aren't meeting up. Just like the concepts of the offense the things put together don't marry each other. They don't make sense together. He keeps talking about, well, that's in the process right now. We're not, but why is he entitled to his processes? Someone change the processes. Do things better. Do things differently, where they're like, well, this is how we do it, and we are in the process of doing our things that we process. At some point, someone has to say, no more of that.
We've got 8 weeks and 8 games left until locker cleanout day here in Lake Forest. And what's at stake is the buy-in of a large group of core players and leaders who are feeling the fatigue of this organization's ineptitude. You have to understand what the stakes of this are. And you're absolutely right with that, Dan, that like you have to find ways to, show direction because this team is directionless right now on a lot of different levels. And so now you've got, some players saying that the week of preparation is great. You've got other players saying they need to be more intentional during the week of preparation to be sharper on Sundays. What we know is on game days that they're not able to play with opponents that they should be able to play with. I count 4 losses this year that if they had been sharp or moderately capable of playing up to their potential, that they would have turned into wins, and they didn't do it. And so it's exhausting to kind of live through that over and over and over again with no ramifications. And that's it, right? Talk about accountability, talk about ramifications all you want. Show us. Don't tell us, because what you're telling us is not resonated whatsoever.
I'm more scared about what's being shown of late, specifically with the quarterback, because at this point, 4-5, no one's thinking playoffs anymore. We're just thinking about survival and the development of Caleb Williams. And the thing that came across my mind yesterday, and it's a bad thought, Dan, and tell me if I'm overstating things here, but what I saw yesterday, it really reminds me of what I saw last year with Bryce Young, and that was a broken player who was drafted #1 overall. Am I crazy in comparing the two and the way they're being handled?
Marshall, the scariest part of this is 15 days ago, we were looking at a quarterback who had led 10 touchdown drives in his 2 games before the bye week. And everything seemed to be pointing in a direction where he was getting unlocked and he was playing comfortable and he was playing free. And there was a sense that everything was there. And then you face a couple defenses that challenge you in a different way and you can't respond to them. And then everything seems like everyone is pressing. Every single player, the quarterback, the receivers, the offensive line, the play caller, everyone's pressing, and it's just completely broken. And now that's what I talk about in terms of big picture stakes. You have to make sure these next 2 months are a constructive process in the growth of Caleb Williams and not something that destroys everything that he wants to be as a second-year quarterback.
But who's in charge of that? Who's looking out for this kid? This is what's making me crazy. All that matters is Caleb Williams. And to this not be a lost year, to somehow get him closer to something. Who's in charge? Who's looking out for him?
That has to be Ryan Poles first and foremost. And we know, and we can shine the spotlight in that direction. I mean, Ryan was ultra confident in what he had assembled on his offensive line. Told us but before the regular season started that he had never felt more comfortable with the depth of that group up front than he did this year. Well, guess what? You went into week 1 with 2 starting guards that are unreliable. Nate Davis is proven unreliable. Tevin Jenkins is proven injury prone. And now you're reshuffling, and then you lose your 2 tackles, and then you lose a swing tackle and a rookie who is out all last year with an injury in Karan Amagaji. And then, guess what? Nate Davis wakes up with a back problem on the day that you absolutely need offensive line depth, and he gets scratched on the morning of the game. And so, shine that light, and say you didn't set your team up for optimal success. And the quarterback is the one that is the most vulnerable because he's the most important piece in this Jenga tower. And if you knock that piece out,
everything
down goes the tower.
And they leave him out there. They leave him out there to get clobbered at the end of the game. And his response is, well, we're out there competing. And that's what we do. We compete. What does that even mean?
And that's a lot of it here.
You're down 19-3. You're not competing.
None of the messages are resonating inside that locker room. That's obvious with what they're saying. It's obvious with the way they're playing. Everyone can see it. And so now at the very top of the organization, the people that are supposed to be the chief decision makers of this better understand what's at stake and how they are being viewed. This isn't just by a bunch of emotional, reckless fans who are having a tough Monday. This is by the league that is watching your building sort of in flames again and wondering why they can never get anything right here, right? That is what the perception is league wide. And you better find a way to get a fire extinguisher, put out the fire, and then create a plan so that the fires don't happen so often around here.
Is it crazy that Ryan Poles has not talked, considering we did just have the trade deadline? A trade was made, and the last 2 years, he talked after trades.
Marshall, I don't have a big problem with that. The previous 2 years, the trades were much more significant. There were 3 significant trades in 22. Last year was obviously the addition of a high-profile guy that you were going to pay a lot of money to. This was a 4th-string running back going to get a new team, and you get a 7th-round pick back. But if significant changes are made in the middle of this week, if Shane Waldron is demoted or dismissed, the general manager needs to face the media. He needs to explain why he had faith in the head coach to reboot on his coaching staff and why he gave him the authority to go out and handpick another successor at offensive coordinator after you deemed that the last guy was incompetent. And then you wind up with this, where 8 games into a season, 9 games into a season, you're completely wayward and you're completely lost again. And so Ryan has to answer to that. He was part of that process back in the winter. He understood what was at stake in terms of putting the infrastructure around the number 1 pick, which you will probably never be in that position again to capitalize on with a quarterback with as much talent as Caleb Williams. And so he does need to answer for that. And he does need to speak if they do make major changes on the coaching staff. Matt certainly alluded to the idea that that is going to happen in the next 48 hours. Why he didn't just come out and say it here on Monday, I'm not sure. But by the time we're back out here on Wednesday, you would expect there to be some I guess, more authoritative voices coming to that lectern and explaining.
They better, because on the one hand, he's like, well, it's my decision and mine alone. Why haven't you made it yet?
Right. And what are you considering? What exactly aren't you seeing? You've gone 34 possessions since the bye week, and you've scored 27 points and 2 touchdowns. You've punted the ball 19 times. You've gone 23 consecutive possessions since you last visited the end zone. Caleb hasn't thrown a touchdown pass since London. You know, like, I could go on and on and on and on and on about how inept this offense is. Why do they need to take a magnifying glass to that when you don't need a magnifying glass to see the wreckage?
Is this just a matter of us ranking the internal options, or are there external options as far as play calling is concerned?
Is Phil Snow available? Can we get it back on the
really?
Mysterious Phil Snow.
I mean, listen, like, Thomas Brown is the one guy in the building that has previous play calling experience. You want to talk about disrupting everything with a rookie quarterback. How about introducing him to a new person in week 11 and say, hey, for the next 8 weeks, this guy is going to oversee your development. Get to know him real well, right? I mean, like, that would be wild to me. So maybe they go that route. Who knows? But you got any play calling experience, Marshall?
I do. In Tecmo Super Bowl, you can't stop me. That's all I got. I've got 8 plays to choose from, and I make them all count.
I had the 6th grade Raiders humming in the flag football league there for a little while.
Well, there you go.
Maybe I can take a quarter or something just to get things back on track.
I think what's the one football league where they let fans, the fan controlled football league?
Fan controlled football
league.
Yeah,
that could be us. Brain Trust is putting our heads together.
Can't be worse.
Dan, it's bad right now, and I just, with this schedule, when you really, like, we've talked about it for so long, the back half, we've talked about it, right? But now it's smacking you in the face. We're talking about 8 games where the non-conference game, where all your division games are there, all 6 of them, home and away, but the non-division games, Seattle, San Francisco, it looks not only daunting, but like an impossible gauntlet to run, because it is an impossible gauntlet to run, and that's if you were – those teams have a combined 70.8% winning percentage, 708. That's wild.
You're right. Don't zoom out that far. Just look at the next 3. Just look at this 12-day span where the Packers are coming with a national audience, and Tom Brady's going to be on the call, and then the Vikings come to town, and then on Thanksgiving Day, you're the first team. You've got the stage, you've got the whole country.
You're the turkey.
Thanksgiving started with that. I remember a few years ago, the Texans went into Detroit and got the absolute crap beat out of them at Ford Field. And I'm not sure their coach got back on the plane after the game. And that's how bad it was. And that's staring you in the face now. You are into the teeth of your schedule. You were supposed to get here at a minimum at 5-4, possibly 6-3. If all things broke well, you could have been 7-2 and looking at a really fun run. Here we are, 4-5. Considering changes to the offensive coaching staff, trying to figure out how much sand is left in the hourglass of Matt Eberflus. Good luck with those 12 days.
These are the days of our lives, Dan.
The disconnect to me between some of the puffy-chested comments that Eberflus makes about we're doing our process and our timing and our this, and we're together and we believe in each other. And was it Courtney Cronin that asked the question about, after the sack of Caleb Williams, how it was a Patriots player that lifted him up and a Patriots player that patted him on the head? It's okay.
That's the Patriots, the 2-7 Patriots.
It's okay. Where are his teammates? Like, there's all sorts of analysis going on of receivers not finishing routes, guys rounding routes, the scramble drill not being as intense as it should be, offensive linemen after their very first assignment just kind of stopping their feet. So it is insulting to hear the coach say, we're together and everybody's on the same page. It's patently untrue. So either he's completely unaware or he's just lying through his teeth, or it's some frightening combination of both.
We got to pull together. We can't pull apart, right?
Apart.
I can't hear it again. And then the other part, he mentioned yesterday after the game and again today, that they've got to capitalize when they get into the scoring zone. Well, guess what, guys? Yesterday they ran one play from inside the New England 30-yard line. They lost 2 yards on a DeAndre Swift run and then took an 8-yard sack that pushed them out of field goal range. You got to get into the scoring zone first, right? Like, we can't talk about we got to execute when we're in the scoring zone. You had one play from inside the opponent's 30-yard line in a 4-quarter football game in 2024.
My question for you, Dan, is, because I know the history, I know it doesn't ever happen. Is it possible? Do Ryan Poles, Kevin Warren, does anyone have permission to fire a head coach in season? Is it possible?
He told you on the first night of the draft that he was tired of the history, right? Like, he's not accountable to history. He's tired of talking about the past. Okay. Ask for some power from your bosses to do what you think is necessary. And maybe he doesn't think it's necessary, in which case Kevin Warren has to say, hey, Ryan, sorry, I've got to make an executive decision here. And if Kevin doesn't have that power, he's got to go into George's office and say, George, I'm sorry, I can't allow your city to feel this way so consistently, because it is embarrassing, not only for the organization here, but for the entire city of Chicago to live this over and over and over again.
Well, it's hurting Kevin Warren's larger message, too. And if he wants to be this grandiose about his role as the sort of self-appointed Chicago sports mayor, that you got to stop your team from sucking. Because it's going to make all of these big plans and all of his vainglorious speechifying about the city and the stadium and what the city deserves. Get the city's name out your mouth until you win a game.
When's the next win coming? They asked me that on Fox 32 last night. When I would predict the Bears would win a game again, and Marshall just laid out for you what's left on the schedule. The way they've played the last 2 weeks, losing to those opponents by that cumulative score. Was it 48 to 9 or 48 to 12?
It's a lot to a little is what it is.
Yeah, I know there's been no touchdowns scored, and against those opponents, like, I don't know how you find another win. Although I will say this, I always remind people that when the 2014 Bears got hit with those back-to-back 50 burgers by the Patriots and Packers, they actually won the next 2 games. Everyone knew it was all coming to the ground. They somehow managed to win 2 more games, and then they lost out from there. So there's a win somewhere in there. I just can't find it.
Yeah, it's the NFL. It's the NFL. Any given Sunday or Thursday, if you're thinking about a Lions win.
It's a dead cat bounce kind of league. It does happen. And sometimes you just run into a team that wants it less than you do.
Yeah, well, and I will just say this, Dan, because I think you're on target with the idea that, okay, now we can all just take a step back from what felt like realistic playoff aspirations 3 weeks ago and now understand that the entirety of the mission is about getting Caleb Williams into 2025 with momentum and not having his confidence shattered or his body broken.
It. Yeah, let's say the body
his
too.
Psyche destroyed.
That is the whole mission.
It's everything.
That's
it's
the
everything
whole
from here
mission.
on out.
It's all that matters. Everything else is shot.
Yep, I agree with you.
All right. Well, on that, Dan Wiederer, thank you as always.
Thanks, Dan.
I would tell you that I'm leaving Hallis Hall right now, but my legs are cut off, so I'm stuck here until Sunday. See you guys.
Bionic man in his future.
We can rebuild him.
Yes.
We have the technology.
We do.